All right, breaking news in the NFL. How does it impact CJ Stroud? We'll get into that. Also, a rule change that could be official next week that not only could impact the Texans next year, but it pretty much impact the entire franchise history of what they've had going on. It is S&L. Happy Friday to all. Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Let's just get into this rule change. Albert Breer put this out there. A vote needs to be had. Let's lay out what they're voting on, how it would impact the Texans, and whether or not we think that this is a good or bad rule change.
So the NFL owners are going to vote on changing the way that playoff seeding operates. And they would strictly seed the playoffs based off of the regular season record. And then teams that won a division would have that as a tiebreaker versus a team with the same record. So gone are the days where you see a 9 or 10 win team host a playoff game when 11, 12 win teams are going on the road in the wild card if this gets passed. Again, it's got to get voted on. And this is a hope that would make the final couple of weeks a little bit more interesting and intriguing. But Landry, when I read this, I saw Albert Breer talking about this. This is about a lot of times the AFC South and a lot of times the Houston Texans. It's about those teams that end up as the 4 seed and are in the weaker division. Last year it was the NFC South and the AFC South. And the Texans have been at the top of the AFC South and have had a less impressive record than a couple of other wild card teams. And this is a rule targeted for largely the AFC South and some of the history that it has.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen teams with losing records. The beast mode run that we always talk about. I mean, that was a team with a losing record hosting the Saints. They ended up winning the game. It's just a significant advantage. And it's something that the Texans, just to be quite frank, they've been impacted by this damn near every year they've made the playoffs. Especially the last 2. Let's just go through it. I think you have the numbers.
All right, so this is 2024. This is how it was seeded last year. If the rule had passed a year ago and the new seeding rule would have the Texans going on the road to the Los Angeles Chargers instead of the Chargers coming to NRG Stadium. And I don't know that drastically changes the outcome. It felt like the Texans last year were a really bad matchup for the Chargers, but that's a total flip of the situation. And then the Chargers would have hosted the Texans instead in 2024. Again, under the proposed new seeding. Let's look at 2023. 2023, again, you're going on the road. You don't have a home game. You don't have Cleveland coming to your place. You're going to Cleveland to face the Browns. That's a big change. You've got a totally different weather situation. They had just, I know CJ Stroud didn't play, but they just beat you up. Now you got to go on the road to their place, even though you won the division. That would have been a huge change in things for the Texans in 2023. So right off the bat, you'd have taken away both home playoff games that the Texans have had under D'Amico Ryans if this seeding change had been in effect.
I guess the question I would ask would be, do you support this change or not? And I subscribe, and you know how I am. I subscribe to the fantasy football theory in that, as someone who's run a fantasy football league for 13 years, and I promise this is going somewhere, I always vote, and you can speak to this. I don't vote based on what my team's doing. I vote based on what's best for the league. Can't say that about everyone in the league, but even if I'm in first place and there's a rule change that negatively impacts me, I vote where whatever is best for the league. So let's obviously, if you're voting in the best interest of the Texans, you're automatically going to say, no, they can't do this. They can't change this. But if you're just talking about the spirit of football and what they're trying to do, I would say that this makes sense. But I also think there's going to be some give or take where you find some situations where it's not necessarily fair too. So there's no 100% certainty when you're talking about seeding, and we see that often. But as long as it's set in stone and it's clear, then I support the change, whether it impacts the Texans or not. I think it's the fair rule.
I do support the change as well. And I don't know that every division is not created equal. And that obviously changes as the teams change, as the cycles change a little bit. So every division's not created equal. I understand that. But just simply winning a bad division should not automatically guarantee you. And it doesn't feel like one game should be enough. Like you have 10 wins, they have 11 wins. Okay, well, they were way better, even though they didn't win their division. They get the home game instead of you. But there's some years where it's 12 wins. There's some years where there's a 2-win difference. And you're looking at a 9-win team hosting a playoff game. So I'm in favor of it, even though it seems like a lot of times it would negatively affect the Houston Texans. And maybe 5-10 years from now, it's a big positive for the Houston Texans. Because in addition to changing the initial playoff seeding, they'd also talk about reseeding after the first round of the playoffs is done. So
which I think is incredibly necessary. Like if there's a massive upset in, like, let's say the 2 seed goes down and the 7 seed beats the 2 seed, then the 7 seed would then play whoever had the bye and whoever earned the bye. So I would support that. That would only impact one round. It is kind of a slippery slope with the divisions at times. But I support, like in the example that I used was a 7-9 Seahawks team facing, I think New Orleans won 11 games that year, and they have to go to rainy ass Seattle and play. And we've seen situations like that. I would support it. The argument and the pushback, and I see it in the chat, is, what's the point of having divisions? Well, the point of having divisions is if you win your division, you're in the playoffs. I mean, it's like kind of like the college football playoff. Like you get into the playoffs, but they seed you up. And I think that's really what the point is that, yes, you still get into the playoffs. All divisions are still represented. But
it's still a positive to have won your division because, as you mentioned, it guarantees you a playoff spot, and it becomes a tiebreaker should you have the same amount of wins as, let's just, for example, use second place in the AFC West Chargers. Okay, well, they got 11, we got 11, we won the division, you're coming to our joint.
Yeah.
So it doesn't totally eliminate the usefulness of divisions. It certainly lowers them down a little bit.
I mean, just think about it this way. So, like in the first round of the college football playoff, and this is just the example I use because you're talking conferences and you're talking all that. If you're saying that this eliminates divisions, I don't understand. That sounds a little bit dramatic. It doesn't eliminate divisions. It doesn't eliminate rivalries. It still matters. You still want to win the division. You just want to win as many games as possible. But if you're against this, then it's almost as if you think that Penn State should have had to go to SMU in week 1 of the college football playoff. Like the first week when SMU had to go to, although SMU didn't win their division, so that's probably a bad example. But like Boise State when they played Penn State, like, so do you think Penn State should have to go to Boise? It's neutral site. I don't see anything wrong with this. I do think there will be exceptions where it won't make a lot of sense. Like there could be a team that is in a bad division and they have a better record than a team that's in a good division. So it's not a 100% cure. I just look back to these teams that win divisions with losing records.
Yeah, I mean, there's no perfect way to do this. I feel like the way they do it now is fairly imperfect. It shouldn't just be, you lost. Like, the Chiefs won 15 games, so sorry, Denver, sorry, Los Angeles, you have no chance to host a playoff game. That doesn't feel correct to me. It doesn't feel right to me. The Jaguars won a 9 wins in the AFC South Championship, but they have to host a playoff game. Doesn't feel that way.
Steven says eliminate divisions, play everyone in your conference and 2 from the other. Hey, I mean, that would be kind of cool. But I don't know if it's that extreme. Just Go Crazy says this is NFL, not college. Not sure what that means. They both have playoffs now. It's not really a voting thing. The point is that some conferences I think we have a better grasp in college of what conferences are good. I think a lot of times in the NFL, it's kind of shuffling where this conference is clearly better than that conference. But so I don't know what that means, especially with college football having the playoff now too.
It would have drastically affected the history of the Texans if this was the case, by the way. I know we went through 2024 and 2023. It wouldn't have changed anything in 2019. You know, they had the tiebreaker of being a division champion over the Bills. So it wouldn't have changed anything. But 2018 changes something. The Chargers move up, kicks the Patriots and the Texans down. And all of a sudden, now instead of playing the Colts, you're playing the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay, so you're facing the Ravens, and the Colts ended up winning that game 21-7. So
sure.
They didn't really benefit from that. So
yeah, 2016. Look at this 9-win Houston Texans. They'd have been at the very bottom.
I don't think this passes though. I support it for like the extreme exceptions, but I don't think they're gonna pass this one. I don't think this one gets through.
This does feel like something that there might be a little bit of momentum for. They all kick it around and they decide to table it for a year, and then they try to reignite the momentum a year later. Maybe hope that whoever's complaining about it, hoping for it now, maybe that goes ahead and they get some teammates in this fight. Another team has 12 wins, but they're the 5 seed, and some team has 9 or 10 wins and they're the 4 seed. Maybe they get some allies in the conversation a year from now. And I agree with you. It does feel like something that could fail to pass when this discussion pops up.
I don't see it passing, but I can get it. I can get it where you're an 11-win team and you're going to face a 9-win team in an inferior division. I can completely understand that. So
it's also worth noting that division wins, like beating the Jaguars, counts the same as beating the Kansas City Chiefs until there's a tiebreaker, by the way. If you lost every division game and won every other game on your schedule, you're still probably winning your division.
Yeah, it's a balance. I think it's a point counterpoint. Like, I'm not pounding the table for the change, but I'm down with it.
Divisions do not have the current value of a division victory, or the current value of winning your division is a guaranteed home playoff game.
That's the value. That's the value.
They're just knocking it down to a guaranteed playoff spot.
Yeah, that's the value of it, and that's really what the argument will be. It is interesting. Detroit's the one bringing it up, so we'll see how they vote on it. But I think we agree, and you've laid out the history in that it would not impact it would not benefit the Texans would not benefit from this rule change, at least historically,
unless they finally actually take the next step and become one of the upper echelon teams of the AFC, and then you don't have to worry about this crap. This doesn't bother the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that's not, it's this, when the Chiefs go to vote on this, they look around, they're like, well, this doesn't really bother us, whatever. Like, if you get to that level, you don't have to worry about this crap. The fact that the Texans have been stuck in this section that they've been stuck in, anytime they've been a sort of good football team, like, that's why you worry about this. You know what? You don't want to worry about this? Go win 13 games.
Yeah, and they are probably a little bit mad, teams having to go on the road that have really, really good seasons that lose. They're bringing up the NFC North. The Vikings, I guess, having to go to the Rams. Is that what?
Yeah, that's one of them from last year.
Yeah, so maybe the Lions are kind of standing up for the Vikings a little bit, but it happens.
I wonder if, and this, the top teams, the teams that are supposed to be there every year, they gotta love the idea of reseeding, because most of the time, if a team hobbles into the playoffs as one of those final teams in the ranking and they pull off an upset, I don't feel like they usually go on a big run. It feels like they usually run into one of the big dogs, and then big dogs smack them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the teams like the reseeding is a bigger is a more long-term crazy thing to think about than
I think the reseeding would be the most realistic. Like I think that makes the most sense. The reseeding, but it just after the first round, obviously. But I don't know that they're going to separate one or the other. It sounds like it's kind of a package deal. Maybe they do separate one or the other. I don't know what the voting process is going to be.
That's when you start. If you're Clark Hunt, you're like over there trying to whip the votes. Like, we can change this, one at a time. We can just do the playoff reseeding this year. We'll do the other thing next year. So he always wants the team that doesn't have any juice left.
And of course they got tush push voting too. So we'll see how the hell that goes.
We'll see.
HDAV Traveler, afternoon to you. Afternoon to Stone Alone 5 times.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that.
For the use. Our amigos here on S&L, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. There is a lot of reaction in the chat about the divisions. Some say, what's the point of the divisions? Some say this is just, making an extreme change because of a small example, which I think the tush push is the epitome of that. If they decide to change that. But yeah, I mean, both sides probably have their cases, their points, their examples, their exceptions. It does feel like, though, NFL coaches, the more that you hear, they very much value the division. Like they very much value divisions. It's one of their first goals. And even the teams that have higher expectations, the winning the division does mean a lot. So that does seem like the NFL mindset. So that doesn't make sense. I don't know how it would eliminate division rivalries, though. You're still playing teams twice. So I don't, I've seen that a couple times. I don't know what that means.
It's really a more, I know that we've used the Texans example. We talked about the AFC. It's really a more long-standing NFC issue. Like, we've seen it more in the NFC in recent years than the AFC.
Yeah.
Like there are single-digit wins hosting playoff games in the NFC, and you got 11 and 12 win teams going on the road. Yep. It's like it's more of an NFC problem than an AFC problem right now. Obviously, everything's cyclical and it could change in a few years. We used a 9-win Texans example from a few weeks ago or a few years ago.
Yeah, I don't really understand where this is going to go, but who knows? The tush push has got to stay, though. That's pathetic if they get rid of that. I think that's embarrassing. That's one team that's really good at it, and their quarterback squats about 900 pounds. So I think that's a bad precedent to set. And I also do feel like, I don't know, I guess the NFL entertains it more often, and I like it. And we get the occasional 1 year change where they make a change and then they go back to different stuff. We saw the pass interference crap, which was a result of the Saints Rams a few years back. And we saw that for a year and it just basically didn't go down. Then we saw the kickoff. We thought maybe they would go back to the usual one, but they continue to tweak that with the kickoff. So,
and it sucks.
It is cool that they at least entertain the possibility, but sometimes it just feels like these fuckers are just suggesting stuff just to suggest it. Like, when you see some of these suggestions, it's like, did you just feel like you had to say something? Did you just feel like you had to make something up and propose it? It's like when you're sitting around talking about rule changes. I'm using the fantasy football example more than I will ever. But when someone just suggests some sort of dumbass rule, I think you're one of the people who does that. But it's a rule change for no reason. It does feel like there's a lot of that in the NFL.
There are some goofy ones that get proposed, and most of them don't get off the table.
What's the point? Are we just trying to? Do you feel like you have to? Is there a rule that each person has to?
I would think that some of those teams feel like it's necessary to have that conversation. It's your theory of support, change the rule for me, not for thee.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Well, that's not what the Bills are doing. McDermott coming out and speaking against the tush push when they do it the second most is pathetic. That's embarrassing.
Well, he's a softie. So
yeah, he's a loser.
When they move on from him, they might win a championship.
You know who's not making any suggestions? Cal McNair.
Nah, he just kicks his feet.
He's just going. He's just chilling.
do one of these. What do you want, Jerry?
What's in the buffet?
What Jerry said.
Oh, yeah. Jerry, where are you voting? Where are you voting on this? Okay. All right. I gotcha. So we have some breaking news that involves the quarterback position.
Mm-hmm.
Brock Purdy has a new contract, 5 years, $265 million. Of course, the agent gets tagged. Is that Rappaport tagging him?
Tom Pelissero
tags the agent and his agency. And Purdy gets 81 milli in guarantees, 165.05 in the first 3 years. The deal runs through 2030. Now, this is an interesting one because we didn't know where the market was going to go. Like, we automatically assumed that the next one's going to be the highest one. And we've seen examples of that. I go all the way back to Derek Carr, round 16, 17, where for a short time he was he was the highest paid quarterback in the league, I believe. Jimmy Garoppolo got up there when he got his bread. We saw Trevor Lawrence become the highest paid.
Here's your highest paid list right now.
So you look at this Brock Purdy thing, and I got to say, I mean, this is reasonable for what he's done and where he's produced. Like, he's not, I mean, it's not like he's like taking a major discount. He's still getting bread. And some would say he's a product of the system and he sucks. I know he generates like a lot of reaction, but that's pretty reasonable for what Brock Purdy has been and what he's done.
He had no argument to be in the 55 million or get close to the 60 million.
I didn't think Dak did either.
There was
that goes back to it. I didn't think Dak did either.
Well, Dak caught the Cowboys in a weird spot where they had to do the deal.
Yeah, the cap.
So for the cap purposes and maneuvering and things like that. So, but Purdy, even if he want to go to the table with the 55 million conversation, they can knock a couple million off here and there. Hey, this didn't work out real well. Hey, you didn't do this very well. It's like he wasn't getting to the 55 million number, but he's got every argument to say, hey, Goff makes that, I can make that, give me more guaranteed money and a longer deal. And it's like, there you go. That's, he gets right up there with some of the big top names because he's the latest, and he was, 2 years ago, he was great. He was top 5 in MVP voting. He's a, really efficient quarterback. And last year he took a step back from that, and he wasn't as good. And the team wasn't as good either, by the way. But they still took care of him to a large degree. And so now when I think you look at this, if you're CJ Stroud, you're saying, okay, if I improve on, if I'm better in 2025 than I am in 2024, I could easily get into the Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen club. I could easily get in there and ask for that.
Well, you're also negotiating with Nick Caserio, and he's not like a good negotiator with contracts. So, I mean, it's kind of a given. I would say CJ Stroud's closer to Brock Purdy than he is Josh Allen. I'm not to offend anyone, but based on what we've seen the last 2 years, I'm not even going to count the Dak contract, but I would say CJ is closer to Brock Purdy. I think he's better. I think if you put him in San Francisco's situation, I think he's doing his thing. So I'm not trying to question that, but I'm saying if we are just looking, and I start with Allen and I go down the Dak thing, I'm just going to put that is what it is. But I would say CJ is probably closer at this point to Brock Purdy than Josh Allen. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So, but I don't know what the negotiation is going to be, how it's going to look. I think this is a big year. I don't think we know what it's going to look like. Like if he, regardless of the why, like if he has a year like he did last year, I think it is. I think there's a case to be made that it probably should be closer to the Purdy than the Josh Allen range. But
I mean, that's a $2 million difference.
Yeah,
and he's going to get probably as much guaranteed money as Purdy, maybe more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's is Nick Caserio, he's not shown us in his history that he's going to mince words over $10 million over 5 years.
No,
he probably my thing with CJ Stroud is we talk about, okay, maybe he's going to get the same amount of money as Jordan Love. Maybe he's going to get the same amount of money as Trevor Lawrence. I want to feel like he's absolutely worth paying him that at the end of this upcoming season.
Yeah, it's a big year for him.
There might be a small section of Jaguar fans that feel like Lawrence is worth 50. There's no way in hell I would feel like Trevor Lawrence is worth $55 million.
No. And that was just we have to do it. And that's I think you're basically saying you don't want to feel like, oh, it's the price of doing business. You want to feel like, okay, this guy's in the Joe Burrow, Josh Allen
I want to be
category, or the arrow is pointing up.
I want to be fully okay with writing him a $55 million a year salary if I'm the Texans at the end of the year. Like I don't want it to be a second guess. I don't want to be like, is he worth this? I want to know, yep, he's asking for $55 million a year. Happy to pay it because we see the arrow is only going up. The arrow's not only going up on Trevor Lawrence. We don't like last year sucked. I know he got hurt. Like last year sucked. He is not worth $55 million a year right now. And I know we're going to say, hey, a lot of guys get paid more than they're worth. Like, you don't have to do these deals. Like so at the end of the year, I want to feel like, yes, CJ Stroud absolutely should be getting this big mega contract. I feel great about him making more than this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Like that's what you want to feel like when you look at this list that Machota put out. Is you want to feel like, okay, CJ is right there with Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and he's in that range, and you feel like he's going to get there, instead of, oh well, Trevor Lawrence and Tua got paid, so CJ deserves more than those guys. That's how you want to feel about the quarterback position based on like the roller coaster. So that'll be really just the overall feel and what it does look like with CJ. I think there's kind of like a little line with like Brock Purdy up to Josh Allen. That's kind of where I'm looking at it, as like, okay, no questions asked right there. You also got to think eventually Mahomes is going to get some sort of extension, although he's kind of in the Tom Brady category where he's making so much damn money off the field and he wants to keep the team around him to where he's kind of like that one of one type of guy who is not really trying to keep the flexibility and keep things loose. So it's hard to compare Mahomes and Brady because their off-field opportunities and their investments and really let's be honest, like, and here's the other thing that I think is interesting, and this is kind of from CJ's point of view. If I'm CJ Stroud, and I think Deshaun said this during the Mahomes contract, it was basically that I'm in a different situation when it comes to like negotiating because he's in Kansas City. And Deshaun said it, and some people kind of like rolled, but I actually felt what Deshaun was saying. And that's that, like, Brady or Mahomes, their situations, their surroundings, the competence of their front office, the job that the organization does, like pivoting or keeping a team around them, even if they have to get rid of something, and the assets, the trusted assets, they're such to where if you take a pay cut, with 100% certainty that the money's going to be used wisely more times than not, or it's going to be used on something you trust. So if you're Patrick Mahomes and you're going to the AFC Championship game every year and you're winning all these Super Bowls, or you're Tom Brady and you're doing the same, then you're willing to do that. Josh Allen, I think, did it a little bit. I think Josh Allen actually could have probably broke bread a little bit more, but he kind of left a little bit on the table. I forgot. I think it might have been to get Shakir an extension. I'm not sure, but he got someone paid by doing what he did. But I mean, does CJ Stroud know with 100% certainty that if he leaves a little bit of meat on the bone, that the Texans are going to use that money wisely and surround him perfectly? I mean, that's kind of the other question and the other thing that goes into the decision. Because I hear people say, do you think CJ could take less money and try to build a team? Well, what are we going to do? I mean, what are you taking less money for, so that they can give Titus Howard and Jalen Petrie extensions? Like, where's the money going? Like, what are we doing? And that's going to be the next phase of Caserio. It's going to be the next phase of D'Amico in this front office to kind of show that. And even if he does end up at the very top of the list, which is possible, he's got Dave Mulgeta as his agent. I mean, CJ Stroud easily, like, it's likely that he gets the Dak Prescott bag.
It's not out of the question he's making 60.5 a year. Like that's very possibly in the realm of outcomes.
Yeah, so they need to they're going to have to tighten up and figure it out regardless of however it goes and whatever happens.
Yeah, and the big thing to me is you got to he's got to show that you're fine with paying him huge money. Like there's teams that are uncomfortable with the amount of money their quarterback's making. The Jaguars to me are the team at the top of that list. They've got to be uncomfortable with the amount of money Lawrence is making for what he can do. And look, if CJ Stroud's awesome this year, start thinking about the Dak tax bracket because that's where he's going to go.
Yeah.
And you know what? If he's awesome this year, pay him. I don't give a damn. Like, the salary cap keeps going up and pay him and get the deal done early in the offseason so nobody comes and jumps Dak and it costs you a couple more money.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, there's a lot of angles to it, and it is a big thing. I mean, there's a reason that the thing that's first talked about when a rookie quarterback bursts onto the scene is how are you going to handle him on his rookie contract? Because as soon as he's off that rookie contract, things just completely change. And so it's not really anything that's like minimal at all. And it's all impacted and everything counts. So everyone's really going to have to step their game up regardless. And I think CJ is going to be in the top 5 for sure. We'll see how he handles this year. If he bounces back strong, then at the very top, even if he's mediocre, he's going to be close to the top. So that's just the way it is. And I'm sure he loves that he's negotiating with Cassera, and he loves that he has David Mulugheta.
I am most interested about the length of the contract because remember, whatever they give him, it gets tacked on to those 2 final years. It's not like it just rips him up and the 5 years starts then. It's like, can they get him locked in beyond a decade? Like, I'm not saying a 10-year deal, but can they get him on a 6-year deal, on a 7-year deal? Like Purdy got 5. Purdy's a 5-year deal. So can you get him to a 6-year deal and then worry about it down the road? Like Burrow was a 5-year. Trevor Lawrence was a 5-year. Like Allen was a 6-year. Can you get him on a 6-year? And like the quarterback money is only going to keep going up.
Yeah, because it's always the most popular thing is the cap's going up, the cap's going up, the cap's going up.
Yeah, so does QB money.
It does, and I'm sure he's looking forward to it. It's a big year though. I mean, he's got to perform, and then there's going to be some interesting discussions had. But I think at the very least we can say he's not going to be. He's going to be able. The good news for CJ from his point of view, regardless of like where he is or what he is from their point of view, they can point to Tua and they can point to Trevor Lawrence. Like they're still able to do that,
Yeah, it's to me, Purdy's deal today is pretty close to the absolute floor of what CJ Stroud would be getting a year from now.
Yeah,
and unless something awful happens from a play perspective in 2025, the floor is Purdy's deal.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because Purdy, I think it's pretty widely accepted, I would say, or it should be, that his surroundings have a big part in why he's having the success he has. Nobody's sitting here saying that CJ Stroud has as good a surroundings as Brock Purdy. It's just, when you go to back-to-back conference championships, you go to a Super Bowl, the statistics are comparable. I'm surprised Purdy really, I thought maybe he was going to get even more. But it really seems like San Francisco, it's a good negotiation by San Francisco because this contract kind of resembles someone who indirectly at least acknowledges that the surroundings have been very favorable for him. Can it have the opposite effect where if the surroundings aren't good, then it kind of impacts the negotiations and you get questioned? It's wild. Fortunately, we got a year to figure it out when it comes to that. James R says, I've never wholeheartedly disagreed with y'all more. You have to be more specific, my friend.
Well, you said about 12 different things there. What do you got to be? Come on, James.
Yeah, I don't know what that you can elaborate on that if you would like. I don't know what's the disagreement. There was a lot that we said there.
Yeah, I'd say the floor
disagreement is
the floor is Purdy, the ceiling is beyond Dak. And I would say likely outcome for me right now, a year from when CJ would maybe do his deal, is $55 million a year.
Yeah. Vigilante Williamson says same with Goff in Detroit. He's not great. That extension shocked me, to be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I think that's a perfect example when we're talking about Purdy and Goff. I think there's similarities there for sure. So yeah, I think that's the question is that CJ, or is CJ closer to the Burrow Allen thing? That's really how we started this and how we
and Goff's thing is, it's like a lot of these big QB contracts, it's hard to eventually get rid of them. The last year Goff's thing is a pretty easy write him a check, make him go away, which is, he'll be 34. CJ's a long way away from something like that. So
yeah, and CJ's, the best football that CJ has to offer is ahead of him. I would say, and this would be the other way to build on the Purdy discussion. I would, if you put a gun to my head, the imaginary gun that I always like to bring up, but if you put the imaginary gun to my head and you ask me yes or no, is CJ Stroud's best ball ahead of him, I would say yes, and I would make dinner plans. Like I would actually be on Yelp making dinner plans, because I know I would be at dinner, because I think CJ Stroud's best ball is ahead of him.
If you don't have to get a reservation at Olive Garden, man. They'll just let you sit down.
I don't know. It gets pretty popping there, to be honest with you. But if you put the gun to my head and you ask me, has Brock Purdy played his best football? The answer might be yes. Is Brock Purdy's best football ahead of him? The answer could very well be no. I can't comfortably say that his best football is ahead of him. And that's the other thing about these contracts. Like Josh Allen, if he stays at the level he's at, the contract's going to be justified. Dak Prescott, again, we're not even going to acknowledge that because it's such a goofy ass situation, and he basically had him by the balls due to their mishandling of the salary cap. So there was that. They basically saved money by giving him that contract. They pushed back the credit card debt. That was like an extreme consolidation of credit card debt. Tua, don't know. Trevor Lawrence, I guess it couldn't get any worse. But with CJ, I can say, yes, I think his best football is ahead of him, even with everything we've said.
Brock Purdy 2 years ago led the league in yards per attempt, led the league in quarterback rating, led the league in QBR, threw for over 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, super efficient with the football, and then didn't look anywhere close to that guy last year amongst challenges and things that he had to deal with. But San Fran's still confident, okay, we're going to pay this guy. We're not going to get caught having to owe him a lot more if he bounces back from his bad year. I think that says a lot about what they think about him. But is he ever doing 2023 all over again? Like they paid him like he is, but man, it's gonna be tough to replicate that situation within which he succeeded.
Yeah, and the difference in San Francisco and Houston, and this kind of goes back to it. And I'm enjoying this conversation. There's a lot of angles to it. There's a lot of dialogue in the chat. Shout out to the chat. Still haven't gotten the specifics on that super chat of what was disagreed on. Feel like we're covering the ground pretty well. I think that the surroundings of Brock Purdy might have been maxed out. I don't think they're getting better. Like I don't think you're getting Deebo Samuel in his prime. I don't think you're going to have Ayuk. George Kittle's getting older. Trent Williams is really the one. Their record without Trent Williams is terrible, and he's on the back end. I love Trent Williams. The defense is getting older. Guys are starting to leave. The division is getting better. It seems like it's getting a little bit more competitive. So, like it feels like they've maxed out the surroundings. The Texans by no means have maxed out the surroundings with CJ Stroud. So I think that's another thing that you got to take into account is to make a living off of it. The saves all butts that I always speak of, like Deshaun saves all butts, CJ saves all butts. We've seen him do it. But CJ has shown that he's at least capable of it every once in a while, and he can flip the switch. And Purdy's had some good games and stuff, but it's going to be a little bit more needed. It's not just going to be, hey, let's run Kyle Shanahan's system and let's figure it out.
They're already significantly worse than the 2023 team. And in the next couple of years should get even further from that 2023
Like, how
team.
much longer is Christian McCaffrey playing? Like, that's the other thing. Like, before they traded for Christian McCaffrey, the year that they went to the Super Bowl, or they went to the NFC Championship game and they went to the Super Bowl the next year. When they traded for him, they were 500. Like, they were literally a 500 football team. I think it's either one game north or one game south of 500, if I'm not mistaken, when they traded for Christian McCaffrey. And then Christian McCaffrey gets there. He has a 10-game stretch like the Christian McCaffrey we all know. They go to the NFC title game. Purdy gets hurt. All the quarterbacks get hurt, and McCaffrey ends up having to play quarterback. So they lose to the Eagles. And then they make it to the Super Bowl. Another great year from Christian McCaffrey. And then this year, Christian McCaffrey gets hurt. And I don't know if it's a coincidence. They don't really make the playoffs, and they kind of seem to lose a little bit of steam. So Christian McCaffrey, I would assume he might have a couple of good years left in him. I don't think, like, when the meat and the bulk of this contract is going on, that Christian McCaffrey is going to be playing elite football. And that's another thing. Like, there's a lot of credit given to the quarterback. I think when it comes to the Texans and you look at what they've done on offense, whether flawed or not, like, the high points of that offense, you can credit CJ Stroud. Like, you can say CJ Stroud deserves the bulk of the credit for when things go well. We can say that. Joe Mixon's did his thing last year in stretches, but for the most part, CJ Stroud is the straw that stirs the drink. It's not even a question. Christian McCaffrey's the straw that stirs the drink at the peak of Brock Purdy's entire existence. So that's another thing that should be kind of taken into account when you're having this discussion.
Yeah, they just paid a QB on the backside of their offense, and really the direction of their whole team, because their defense has lost some key players, and they haven't gone about replacing those guys, and they're going to start going downhill a lot faster when you lose a McCaffrey, and then when they lose Trent Brown, that's when they're really going to start going downhill. Trent Williams. That's when they're really going to start going downhill, because the rest of their offensive line is, there's one guy that's decent in Purdy, but like the Texans have a chance to continue to be on the upslope. We don't know if they're on the upslope. We suspect they are, with the youth that they have at the wide receiver position, the new offensive direction that they're going to take. We suspect they're on the upslope. They have a chance to pay CJ on the way up, whereas the 49ers are now paying Purdy on the way down.
Yes, I would agree. Unless you think there's just going to be like some sort of massive jump. I'm 100% with you, and I don't think the McCaffrey factor is something that you take lightly.
No, and look, I like Juwan Jennings, and I like Ricky Pearsall. He should be a better player here in year 2 than he was his rookie year after the getting shot before the season started. But Brandon Ayuk's coming off a significant knee injury. Is he going to be the same player? They've got a lot of money committed to him. Like, Purdy's going to have to make do. There's not a lot of switching and swapping and changing to what they have. And, the Texans have at least given CJ options this year. And then we think with the Iowa State duo, some options in the coming years as well.
Yeah. There's no like better option at quarterback. It's not Trevor Lawrence. I don't think we're saying that, but it's definitely, all the window of this era of 49ers football it's slowly shutting, and maybe the different era looks completely different. But the window is definitely right there when it comes to this team that's kind of been knocking on the door for a few years and figuring out. You can even go back to like the Garoppolo before that, and you can kind of consider Purdy kind of a continuation of that. So
a lot easier to change the direction of quarterback when it's Garoppolo and his money versus now when it's Purdy. Like that's their guy for the next 4 years at least, probably 5. So
what a draft pick. Last pick of the draft. How about that?
Yeah, this is Graham Mertz in a few years. Obviously, this is potentially what he could be.
Shut up. All right.
That's why you draft a quarterback late, right?
On that note, hope y'all enjoyed the dialogue, the CJ Purdy. I think we covered about every angle of that. Good, bad, point, counterpoint. The rule change, who knows what's going to happen? We'll have a better idea of that next week. Hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. If Brock Purdy owes you money, today's the day to ask for it.